pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with I feel a little presumptuous doing my own reaction video to the 2018 Women's Prize Longlist, but I'm gonna anyway. I'm not going to do a detailed introduction of each novel or anything like that. If you would like a more fulsome reaction and description of each book, please check out videos such as those by Eric Carl Anderson and Simon Savage, also Wild Reads, and Chris of Chris Bookish Cauldron. I don't really set myself up as a critic, an arbiter of whether it's a good list or a bad list, but in a subjective way, I will say that I was excited by the books that were on this list that I hadn't read, and quite disappointed by the books on this list that I had read. But that's just my opinion, right? So, let me just run through the ones that I've read that are on the list, read or bailed on. So the first one that I bailed on was Three Things About Elsie by Joanna. I believe that was just last month. I tried it on audio and I just thought it was a flimsy mystery with no redeeming literary quality whatsoever. That one didn't last very long. Last month I also bailed on The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock by Imogen, Hermes, Gowar, which I thought was just a piece of Disneyfied fluff with no redeeming literary value. It was wonderfully written, but it was just a silly story. I guess if we're talking about bails, I will say that I bailed on Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, but I didn't give it very much of a try. I found the audio narration rather grating, and probably only listened to 10 or 15 minutes, so I am going to try that one again, I think. My most benign bail, so I'm not unhappy to see this on the long list, is Elmet by Fiona Mozley. I thought it wasn't a novel. It was beautifully written, but it was just wonderful pages of lush, descriptive prose about the landscape and not much of a story. I just couldn't continue. I read about half of it. I would read anything else she writes in the future, but I thought this was a failure of a novel, but a wonderful failure. I'll be disappointed if this book won because I don't think it's very good, but she is a writer to watch. The novel that I feel most positive about on this list, having read it, is The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati. I gave this 5 stars. It's probably diminished down to maybe 4 stars for me since I read it last summer, but the writing is just exquisite and the characterization and the story is fascinating, but it has not aged particularly well in my mind. The more I think about it, it wasn't a novel. There was 2 stories here. The second story, the political story about the Kashmiri militant or activist and all the relationships that those people formed with both sides of that political divide, was a masterpiece. The story about the transgendered character I thought was given short shrift, and the two never really did fit together into a cohesive novel. Still, I was completely enraptured by this book. Of all of them that I've read, this is the one that should win, but it's not a completely successful novel, and it's very off-putting to 70 to 80% of its readers. It's a very dense, difficult read, but I loved it, and I'm going to leave it at 5 stars for now, but I think it's more like a 4-star novel. So that's the only one that I feel positive about, and that's with those caveats. I didn't like Home Fire by Kamila Shamsie at all. I thought it was very weak. I don't like mythic retellings in my fiction. Get them out of my fiction! And I just thought this one was particularly bad, and glorified harlequin romance with a bunch of politically correct racial mumble jumble painted on top. Blech! Hated it! Okay, so those are the ones I've read. I feel much more optimistic because I like to be optimistic about the ones that I haven't read. I am currently reading 2, and it's by chance, or it's blame it on Eric, but I am reading Sight by Jessie Greengrass. I'm about 15% of the way in or something, maybe 20%. Really enjoying it. Not sure that this personal story of the narrator and the historical story that she's telling and that she's so fascinated by, if not obsessed with, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel by the end that those two really fit together. I don't see how they fit together yet. I am withholding judgment because I'm having a great time. The prose is just lush and dense and wonderful. So I have high hopes for Sight by Jessie Greengrass. I'm also on audio listening to Manhattan Beats with Jennifer Egan, and I'm quite enjoying it. It's early, but it's so far, so good. That's all I'll say about that for now. So those two are in progress. Let me go down the list of the ones now that I haven't talked about. I do have a copy of Happy by Nicola Barker. Many people, including Eric, raved about it when it was on the... I think, didn't this win the Costas? I'm bad at remembering. I remember all the long lists and short lists, but I don't really often retain the memory of who won. But I think this actually won, and that's why I bought it. The more I think about it, I'm not sure this is a Sean book, and I'm not sure I want to read it, but I should try it. Whether I try it before the shortlist is announced or only commit to reading it if it's on the shortlist remains to be seen, but I'm curious about it. It's very experimental, and I'm not sure about that. I have never read anything by Elif Batuman. I probably have read some of her articles in the New Yorker, but her novel The Idiot is on the list. I've heard very mixed reviews of it. If it makes the shortlist, I might try it. Beyond that, I'm not interested enough to try. I hadn't heard of Miss Burma by Charmaine Craig, but I'm very interested in the story. I worry that it's not going to be of enough literary quality to satisfy me. But the story sounds interesting, and Charmaine Craig, it's based on her family, and she is a descendant of Burmese Jews and the Karen minority. I'll put a link, because I stumbled on... She doesn't have a Wikipedia page. She was also an actor before she became a writer, and she's now a creative writing prof somewhere in the States. Her mother was Burmese beauty queen. And this is based on her family story. So I'll put a link to her mother's Wikipedia page because, good Lord, it certainly piqued my interest in the novel. But I just have a feeling if nobody's really been talking about it as a great literary novel, I might be disappointed. But I am going to try it. As I said, I will give Eleanor Oliphant another try someday, but I may not get to that before the shortlist is announced. When I Hit You, or A Portrait of the Writer as a Young Wife by Meena Kandasamy, sounds very interesting. I have it available to me, I've just recently realized, on Scribd, so I am going to try that one. Again, it seems like a very issue-oriented novel, and those often go awry and don't satisfy me in a literary way, but I hope I like it. See What I Have Done by Sarah Schmidt is a historical novel based on the Lizzie Borden story. And I've heard deeply mixed reviews. Steve Donahue loves it. Other people whose reading tastes I often share really didn't like it. I guess I'm going to try it. I've got it on both audio and ebook on Scribd, so yes, I will try it. But anything I've heard about it, I don't think that one's for me. This one I've had sitting on my shelf for a while, and this is on the list. A Boy in Winter by Rachel Seiffert, and I think I'm going to like it. So I'm going to try it too. I went to a great lengths to get this edition of it because of the cute boy on the cover. The next one hasn't been released anywhere. Its publication date is March 29th. The Trick to Time by Kit de Waal. I didn't know much about Kit de Waal, but I've now learned that she's Caribbean Irish. I guess her father was Caribbean and her mother was Irish, and she's an Irish writer. Her first novel everybody loves, most people love. I haven't read it. This one sounds interesting. I don't have a book buying budget to buy a bunch of books, so if this one shows up on Scribd after the publication date, I may try it, but otherwise I'd wait until the short list. And the last one, Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmond Ward. Jesmond Ward and I don't get along, and I've heard very negative reviews of this from people whose tastes usually align with mine, and I'm not going to try it. I think I would hate it. I didn't enjoy her first book. The name always escapes me whenever I talk about her on the channel. I say her first book, and I can't remember, but I bailed on it. So I might try some of her non-fiction. She's not my kind of writer. So those are my reactions. I think the page 112 tag works great for narrowing down prize lists in terms of what I'm going to read. So I'm going to do a page 112 tag this weekend, I think, on 3 of the books that I have in my possession or access to, in terms of which ones seem the most interesting. So please stay tuned for that. How about you? What do you think overall about this list? Like I say, I don't set myself up particularly as a commentator or arbiter of these matters. Personally, of the ones that I'd already read or didn't end up finishing, kind of disappointed. Except for the Arundhati Roy, but even that one I don't think is a completely successful novel. But there's ones that I'm really excited about that I haven't read, particularly the Rachel Seiffert and the ones that I'm currently reading, Sight by Jessie Greengrass. You know, I'm quite excited about those. But how about you? What do you think? And which of these are you most likely to read before the long list is announced? Oh, and by the way, if you want a special BookTube treat, go to Steve Donahue's channel for his reaction. He has a special guest. It was, I felt like I died and gone to BookTube heaven. So, oh my God. All right, thanks for watching.
Thank you.